questions during the live session. So for those who haven't been in a webinar before with me, I'm Mary Kovach from Erie One BOCES, One ERIC. And you can see my picture on the screen here. That's me. And also in this slide, I have put in several badges that I have earned through technology, because today's topic is badges. So at the top here, I have my Microsoft and my Newsela badge. And down here, I have my badges for being a Google certified trainer and educator. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at today, I'm looking at a way to give students badges through Google, and also to promote sort of a friendly competition, possibly through class leaderboards, or to set goals for students. So why use a leaderboard in Google? So again, a leaderboard is just something where students are earning points and they're accumulating over time. And what they can do is see how they rank among other students in acquiring points. So what's nice about using it in Google is you can let students see their progress visually and instantly. Because again, with a Google document, as in a Google Doc or even a Google spreadsheet, students, as soon as you enter something, can see it automatically. So I'm going to click on a Google Sites example. And now this one actually is in the old Google Sites that I've created this. But as you can see on here, I've created a leaderboard using combinations of some different methods. So an XP calculator, an XP standing for experience points, or a lot of times you'll just use XP to mean points that you've earned, whether it's gaming or something else. So that part of it I got from a Google user named Chris Hesselbein. And his website is linked here within his Google+. I know it was down earlier today, so you might want to check back for some of his other Google resources having to do with gamification. So gaming in the classroom, how to gamify your class. And also, we'll look at some resources from a Google innovator named Alice Keeler. So we'll look at some things that she does with creating badges in Google Drawings and using those in conjunction with Google Sheets. So you can see from here, what I have so far is a gauge, and this is showing a class XP total. So here you see I have some sample students, all some different superheroes, X-Men, different various mutants, gods and goddesses. And this is kind of their class XP total. So you can set a gauge to say once you reach a certain color, let's say, or threshold, you would have a reward. And of course, then the leaderboard here ranks the students. And then below here, I also added in badges for students. So in this case, I use martial arts belts as an example. But I'll also show you how you can create your own badges within Google Drawings, because all of these are actually done in Google Drawings. And it's set up so that when students reach a certain number of points, they get a certain title, a certain level. So in this case, it's different belts they can accumulate. So this is done with formulas within Google Sheets, which we can take a look at. I do have templates for you that you can use with this, so I'll show you how you can set that up and how you can modify that for your own purposes. And this actually, if you want, I have the two tabs. So I have my leaderboard, and you can also have it tied to form responses. So instead of just entering information into the spreadsheet, what you can also do is fill out a Google form and help to award points that way. Okay, let me just see what we have so far here. Okay, So some other reasons to use a leaderboard, promoting that friendly competition, as I mentioned, as long as students aren't too competitive. But again, another aspect, if you didn't want to do a leaderboard, could be that you set goals for a whole class or for class groups so that students can learn to work together toward a common goal. Because any of the fields that we have in the spreadsheet I'll show you, you can customize, you can hide ones that you don't want to use. So again, points can be awarded for both academic achievement, so receiving a certain grade, reaching a certain level, let's say, or for character exemplars, because there might be students who really excel in that area. So students who naturally will help others, be respectful to other students in their classroom. So you might want to have ways to award those students as well. And as I mentioned, if you didn't want the competition aspect of that, you could have students work toward a reward for a certain number of points accumulated. So now we'll talk a little bit about badges. As you can see, I have some of my badges on the screen here. So badges are a way to recognize achievements in a particular area or skill. So again, it's something that's used in education quite a bit, even in higher education or other websites out there that offer tutorials and the ability for people to gain a certain skill. And what you'll get is a level and usually a graphic that will represent the image. So you can see here, these are some examples of the kind of graphic you might get. And this symbol is something that you can download or save to display for others to see. So again, here I have them in my presentation, but you could also put them onto a website. A lot of people put them as part of either a user profile or as part of an email signature for different sites, as part of their blog. Anytime you want to show your achievements in that visual way. And just a couple of examples outside of Google that use badges. The first one I clicked on here is Open Badges. So again, it's through Mozilla, the same company, I guess you call them company, that puts out the Firefox browser, which is open source. They have badges that you can add to your site, and a lot of sites will do this, where you can earn badges. So you can see in here, it will give you some background information about badges and how their, what they call their backpack works. And even a quick navigator badge that you can earn by answering certain questions. So for example, this is sort of a web navigator quiz that you can take to obtain a certain badge. And just if I click on where can I earn badges, if I scroll down a little bit here, I can click where it says Open Badges Issuers. And this just kind of gives you an idea of, and there are many here you can see, some different institutions, different sites that offer open badges. So for example, here is a university in Berlin. You can open up here. Obviously, this is German. I don't really understand everything that's in there. I could always translate it. But you can see that a number of these sites, and this is just the very beginning of the alphabet, will offer teachers, parents the ability to sign up their kids, their class, and students can earn badges for different achievements. So some other educational badging and leaderboard ideas. So as I mentioned, you could have sort of a belt system, let's say. So this is an example of the template that I created, or I should say curated, and added some things to. So this is for one of my recent online classes. People who chose to sort of give their username, and some of these I do have to update because they've actually earned some more points. See, I can probably add in some points here if I want to. Let's see. So I could even add in, let's see, some points here. So I'm going to go to Lee here. So I know that she had 10 points here. Oops. Let's see, so 10 points here. Sorry, I'm working on some different screens here, so I can add in her points that she's gotten here. And then when I do that, it's actually going to update her belt on here. So I went from green to red. So you can do that where you're filling in points in this tab here, or you're filling out a form, which then fills into this spreadsheet. Another idea that I had, because in a couple of months, we're going to have the Winter Olympics, is if you wanted to take this template and set it up as Olympic medals or Olympic places, you could do that for reaching certain thresholds of points awarded by a teacher. Now, also, I did have a request over the summer from a teacher who wanted to do something with group work, and her students were really into Harry Potter. They were reading Harry Potter. So she developed one around the houses of Hogwarts, so having students in groups, and they're accumulating points for their group. So this is just the example here. And it's not the actual one that she used, but it's a copy of it, so you can see how that would work. So you can see that I have the houses here. And then I can add in points. And actually, that was in a different account here, so let me copy that over. But it's the same idea. So as I add in some additional points here, then it's going to reflect that in the leaderboard as well. And now you can see that Gryffindor is a little bit higher in the Hogwarts House Cup. So then as I'm adding in points, this particular chart, which is just a bar chart, and we'll go over how to put charts in to some spreadsheets as well, that will adjust as I add in the points. And so you have these examples that you can take a look at. You can always make a copy, and then you can modify them for yourself. I've also had another teacher do something with fantasy football for her students, where they had to choose a fantasy football team and keep track of points, where they actually had to do the mathematical calculations, the computations, and they kept track of their points, their stats, in a spreadsheet, and then it would reflect their ranking and the badges that they received. So again, as I mentioned, if you wanted to give students, instead of just a virtual reward, such as reaching a certain level in XP, you could say that once you reach a certain color in the gauge, so once you reach the red or the green, whatever you set it as, maybe they have a pizza party they earn, or some other reward, pajama day, or watching a movie, whatever that might be. So it can either be the class works together to earn points, or it could be, let's say, one small group wins and they get to eat lunch in the classroom. So it could be something like that, or classes, especially if you're a secondary teacher, classes kind of competing against each other for earning that pizza party. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll show you where you can download the template that I made in Google Sheets. So a couple of different ways. So from this slide, you could click where it says template in Google and then click make a copy. So that's the one place where you can get the template. So any of these red links, or if you go back to the online course platform, they're also in here. So right below the link for the presentation, we have the leaderboard and badge template. So once you click that, what's going to happen is it will say, would you like to make a copy of the template? So you would say make a copy. And it might look a little strange right now. Any place where you see this hashtag ref exclamation point, that just means there's somewhere, it's a cell that has a formula in it. So until we actually set up our data for that, it's just going to have that sort of placeholder until we get there. And the badge links that are here, these are actually those belts that I created, but we'll go through how you could make your own images in Google Drawings. And then in this template, there's also a second sheet. This is an optional thing that we'll do if you wanted to have students receive an email each time they receive a new badge. So we'll talk about that shortly as well. But once you make a copy, if you want to change the title at the top, you can do that. I'm just going to practice with this. I'll call this live session template, because now this will be the template I'll use for my live session here. Okay, so then once we have that copied, what we have to do is create a new Google form. So there's a couple of ways you could do that. You could go back to your Google Drive and go to New, and then scroll down to More. And once you do, a separate menu will pop up and you click on Google Forms. So that's one of the three ways that you could create it. You could also, from here, go to File, New, and choose Form. Or if you have just started up your browser, you can click on your waffle up here in the upper right. You may have to scroll down or click more from your waffle, and then you'll see Forms. So Forms, it's always going to be that purple icon. Now, the one way that you wouldn't want to do that, sometimes there might be cases where you have a spreadsheet and you want to tie it automatically to it by going to the Tools menu from the spreadsheet and create form. I'm saying this is not the way you would want to create the form in this case. So the other three ways are just fine to create the form, but just for this spreadsheet, you would not want to go to the Tools menu and choose that. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead is go to File, New, and I'm going to create a form. Okay, so instead of untitled form, I'm just going to click where it says untitled form. I'm going to say live session XP points. Okay, and then up in the upper left, if I click where it says untitled form, it's going to reflect that same title. Okay, so now the questions are going to be the names of the students or their email addresses. So there are some times where you might want to do email addresses instead of student names or nicknames, but we will talk about that shortly. But one thing that you could do is, let's see, instead of multiple choice question, choose short answer. And I'm just going to put in some sample student names. Now, I could do this for every single student. Maybe an easier way would be if I click on, next to the trash can, there's this what looks like little playing cards. That's actually the duplicate button for questions. So if I click there, it's going to copy that question. Now I can type in more names. I keep clicking on that duplicate button. Okay, and then just do a few more here. Okay, so now I have my form. Now, if I wanted to change the look and feel of it, again, it might be the case where only you're the one filling out the form to enter points. But if you are having students do that, a couple of things that you could do. So if you wanted to change the look and feel, you could click on the color palette. Either choose one of these colors, or if you click on this mountain icon, then you're able to choose any of these different backgrounds that we have. And just click one and then click select. Now, if you are having students put in either their own XP points for an achievement, or it could be where students, are charged with actually giving points to other students for character traits or positive things that they've done to their fellow students, it might be an option. What you'd want to do is up in the settings, you would want to make sure that you collect email addresses just so you know which student that was from. Okay. And also by default, if you're in your domain for your school, by default, the form is going to restrict that to only users in your domain. So if for some reason this was something where you had, parents or others awarding points, then you could always deselect that option. So if I am having students fill that out, I'll just click on collect email addresses, where they're just now putting in point values. If I click on response receipt, that means that if they want to, they can get their responses sent to their email. If I choose if respondent requests it, if I choose always, it will go to this email address automatically. I'm just going to click save. Okay, so now I have my form. Okay, so now what we have to do, so we already put in our short answer question, which will be the students' names or their email addresses. Okay, and now we need to link this form to the Google spreadsheet, the template that you downloaded. Okay, so as it says here, we're going to click on the responses tab, and then the sheets icon. Okay, so let me go back to my form here and click on the responses tab. So again, this is where you're going to see any of the responses which are points awarded. So what I'm going to do is click on this green icon. So the green is always the spreadsheet, the Google Sheets. So I'm going to click here. And instead of creating a new spreadsheet, select an existing spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm going to click select. And this is my template that I had copied and renamed. So now I'm going to link it right to that template. So I'm going to click select. Okay, but now we have two tabs open with that. So you can see now to the template, what it did was it added some additional tabs. So now instead of just the sheet 1 and sheet 2, it added in my form responses. So what's going to happen is as point values are added through the form, it's going to go into the formulas in this spreadsheet. So now what I can do is go ahead in any of these cells that say ref, and then click enter. And then it's going to update that. Obviously now we don't have, and I think I actually deleted one of the formulas, so let me go back. I can always click my back arrow. Okay, I did that accidentally by pressing the delete key instead of enter. So now I'm just pressing enter for all of these. And you really only need to do it for the number of students that you have in your class. Now let's do it for 21 students, let's say. Okay, so right now it says they all have white belts because I haven't actually added in any of those points yet. Okay, so now what's going to happen is the way points will go in is when you fill out the form that we just created, you'll enter numerical data, and it's going to be calculated through those formulas that are already built into this Google Sheet. So I'll just do a few test ones there. so you can see what that would look like. Okay, so now I'm back at my form. Right now I'm in the editing mode for my form. So what I want to do to actually go to the live form, I can click on this eyeball at the top of my screen here. That's the preview. I can either do that, or I can click on form now that they are linked, and I can go to live form. So either one will take you there, where now I can start to enter in points for students. Let's go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And then again, because I chose that option of send me a copy of my responses, I could choose to get that emailed back to me if I was a student filling that out. So I'm going to click submit. Okay. And so now you see, because Mimi has 10 points, she has now earned a yellow belt. And also we need to click enter in our cells here. Let's see, and actually I think I will need to go through the whole thing. So you can see what yellow belt is here. XP needed for yellow belt is 10. So that's why hers is higher than the other ones right now. Okay. I'm gonna go through here. Enter all of those. Okay, so I guess I did actually have to press enter for all of these cells here, even if you don't have 36 students in your class. So once you do that, you will see the ranking of students here. So you can see that they're ranked now. Instead of over here, they're just by the order in which I put them into that form. Here now they're ranked according to who has the most points. And that's reflected, if you look back at the formula bar, when you click on one of these cells, it's reflected back to this row here, K, which these are all the links for the badges. So I'll show you how you can create badges within Google Drawings, and then you can add your own links to this field as well. But then also, here is where it's referencing how many points it takes to get each belt. So also in any of these, if I go to white belt, yellow belt in this column D, you can see that it's using those particular columns to pull that data. So you don't necessarily have to know everything that's within those formulas. If you get messed up, you can always send me an email. But once you start to use it, maybe you're even someone who likes to get used to a pattern and get used to some different formulas. If not, you can just use the template as it is. Okay. So now I'll show you how you can insert some different kinds of charts into this particular spreadsheet. Okay, so the first one we'll do is we're going to select cells L1 and M1, which are the label class XP, and then the total XP points. And then we'll go to insert chart from our spreadsheet, and the one we'll choose is called gauge. And then by default, we can set minimums and maximums that are these colors, but we can certainly customize that too. Okay, so now I'm going to scroll over on my template here. And you can see the class XP total. If I click on that cell and I go up to my formula bar, it's just the sum of everything that's in that B column, which is bringing over from my form responses any of those points. So in here, I'm going to click on my class total XP and either click and drag over to M1, that cell, or I'm going to click on the first one, hold down my shift key, and then click that second one. So now they're both selected. And I'm going to go up to my insert menu and choose chart. Okay, so now you can see right now this is not the chart that we want. So under chart type, I'm going to click this drop down. And I'm going to scroll down to where it says other. And I'm going to choose this one. It looks like some dials. That's called gauge chart. Okay. So now what I can do is, if I needed to switch which row was the header, I could do that. But now what I'm going to do is from data, I'm going to click on the customize tab. So this is now where if I wanted to add in under my gauge menu, I can add in different point values that reach a certain threshold. So for example, now let's say I didn't want red for my lowest value. Excuse me. What I could do is choose a different color. So let's say that I wanted to choose this bluish color. So I can set my minimum. And let's say here I'm going to go up to 50. Okay. And actually then let me just adjust it up here. I'm going to make this the minimum and max for the whole thing. I'm going to make 150. Okay. And now the second one here. I just didn't want the red there. I just wanted to change the color, but now I can kind of do this for this as well. So if I have a minimum of 51 to, let's say, 100. And then in here, I can set 101 to 150. Oops, I meant 150. Sorry about that. It's very literal. So now I have my XP total. So you could tell students, once we're at the yellow, we get a certain reward for our class XP total. Once we're at green, we get something else. So it's a way of accumulating class points for rewards as well. So that's one kind of chart that you can put in. I'm just going to click on it. I can resize it. I can drag it to a different part of my spreadsheet if I want to. So another kind that I could do is, let's say I wanted a chart just for my ranking for my students. So I could hold down on my first cell, hold down Shift, and then click on the last cell that I want to put into that chart. And so again, I would go to Insert Chart. And this time, what I really want is a table of data. So again, go to my chart type. And then in here, I'm going to scroll back down to Other and choose my table chart. So you can see this one now is just the ranking, the student name, and then the total XP. And of course, I could always customize that with some different table options as well. So whenever you wanted to edit that table or whatever chart you put in, you could just double click on it. And if I wanted to delete it, I can either click delete on my keyboard or click these three dots in the upper right, and I can choose delete chart. I can also choose to save it as an image, download it to my computer, or I can choose to publish the chart and get an embed code that I can put into either my school website, into a Google Sites, if you're doing the Classic, however you would want to share that with students. I could click either link or embed and then click publish. So this publish to the web option is actually something we'll look at again in our next step, which is creating those custom badges. So I'm just going to actually delete this chart here. Okay, so again, we're going to create some badges in Google Drawings. So the Google innovator that I took this from originally, the idea, is Alice Keeler. So here within the presentation is a link out to her site, and it has some of her example badges. So if you scroll down, you can see an example of what her template looks like. Again, I took elements from hers and put it into my template. So I kind of took some of Chris and some of Alice's and added some of my own things as well. So again, we'll go through these steps of creating that drawing. But she also does link here a sample of her own badge. So if you ever wanted to click where it says click here, you could always, if you wanted to, go to File, and you could make a copy of one of her badges and just kind of modify it from there. What we're going to do is create some badges from scratch, and we are going to make those like Olympic medals, very simple Olympic medals. Okay, now she has some other steps in here that she uses for a similar template. So if you're looking for something a little different, for example, in hers, students actually get a grid that displays all of their badges. So again, if you wanted something further, you wanted to take it to another level, there is her additional videos and strategies to watch as well. What we're going to do is go to Google Drawings, and we are going to create our own custom badges. So I'm just going to do a few examples here. Okay, so we're going to go to our Google Drive and click on New. And just like with Google Forms, what you would need to do is go to More and then choose Google Drawings. Okay, so now up here, let's say in here, I'm going to call this one gold medal. So just in the upper left-hand corner, I'll name that. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is use some of the drawing tools that are built into Google Drawings. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is set a custom size for my image. Because again, a Google badge, it has to be relatively small to fit into the cells. And any badge anyway is usually this very small image. So I'm going to go to File and then scroll down to where it says Page Setup. And then from here, click on my drop down where it says Standard, and I'm going to choose Custom. So instead of measuring in inches, I like to choose pixels. And for this particular template, it works well if you do, let's say 100 by 40. So I found that to work pretty well. So type in my pixels and then click OK. Now, while we're at it, I need to give you the secret code so that you can take the quiz to get the hour of PD credit for this webinar. So I'm just going to put in a quick text box in here, click and drag, and I'm just going to put in what that code is. I'll just make that a little bit smaller because we're in a small size here. So our code is going to be draw badges, no spaces, because that's what we're doing here is we are drawing some Google badges. So that is our secret code. Just leave that up for one more second here, and then we will get started on our drawing. Okay. So the first thing I'll do to create my medal is if I go up to my Shape tool, I'll choose Shapes, and I'm just going to choose the oval. Now, if I want the oval to be a perfect circle, what I'm going to do, whoops, don't want that one, is, let me go back to my circle here, is I'm going to hold down my Shift key and then click and drag on the screen. Okay. And now I can move it if I want to. So as I'm clicking and dragging to move it, it will tell me when it's centered by giving me those crosshairs. Okay, so now if I want that to be a gold medal, instead of this default blue, I have my circle selected. I'm going to go up to my fill color, to the drop down, and maybe to give it sort of a shiny feel, instead of just a solid color, I'm going to click on the gradient. And maybe I'll choose, let's say, this one right here. Sort of a light yellow. I could probably go maybe one darker here. Look like a gold medal. Well, you know what? If we have bronze too, maybe I should do this one as the gold medal. Okay, I can also choose a different line color if I want to. So say I want to make that blue. And again, I can click on my text box, draw it somewhere on the screen here. I may have to actually move it around and resize it. Again, we're working with a very small image here. It looks big on our screen, but really it's a very small image. So what I'm going to do is take that down to, let's say, 7-point font. I type in gold, click enter. Oops. Medal. Okay. And I can center that text. Actually, I'm going to select all of it and make sure that's centered. And then kind of move this, let's say, to the center. Now I could put other little images in there if I want to. If I wanted to go to here, I can click and drag and draw on a little lightning bolt. Let's see, I'm going to make that some kind of a cool color like that. Also in here, what I might want to do is put some strings on the side here, or some ribbons for my medal. Just going to make that the same blue here under my fill color and my line color. Okay, now I can copy and paste this image here, so I have the same thing on the other side. Another way that you can make a copy and also move it at the same time is if I hold down my Alt key or my Option key, I'm going to click and drag, and then it moves it, but also makes a copy that it keeps right in that place. Okay, so now I have my gold medal. So now, again, just with any Google document, it saves automatically into my Google Drive. But now what I want to do is publish it to the web so I can get that link that I can put into my spreadsheet so that students can see. So I'm going to click on File, just Publish to the web. Okay. And now from here, I'm going to click Publish. And again, if I wanted to require under the settings here that users sign in or be signed in with their organizational account, so if I want to make sure that it's a student who sees these, certainly check here. If not, just leave the setting as it is and click Publish. It will say, are you sure you want to publish? And I will say, okay. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is now copy this link that's right here. So I can either right click and copy or do Control C and close out. So now, if you're making your own custom badges, what you would do is put them into here where it says badge link. So what you would just do is, if you click in that cell, go to your formula bar, we're going to take out that link that I have in, and we're going to paste in the new link. So either going to edit and paste, or Command or Control V and click enter. Okay, now I don't have any students who have that particular badge yet, but let me go in. I'll just fill out the form one more time. I'll make sure that Mimi gets 20, because 20 then will bring you up to gold. Okay, and then you'll see my other students move up as well. Okay, once that data goes through here. Okay, I'll just take a second here. Let me just, oh, there it goes. So you can see it came right in, and now that will reflect in here as well. So now you see that my gold badge here has changed to that gold medal. So that's how you can create your own custom badges and then put it into the template. Okay, so just a couple of other things here. This is sort of something that would be optional, but I've added in some templates if you want to use a program called Autocrat. So as I was mentioning, if you wanted this to be something where students receive the badges, but you don't necessarily want them to be able to copy and paste them from your template, if that's a concern, you can set up where students would receive an email with a link to their badge, and they wouldn't receive that link actually reached a certain point threshold. First thing is, if you wanted to share this spreadsheet with students, you would have to, of course, like with any other Google document, click on the share button here in the upper right corner. So again, I wouldn't give students the ability to edit the spreadsheet. If you wanted them to be able to fill out the form, you can certainly, add that live form link into your Google Classroom, share that with students if you want them to add points. Otherwise, you don't really need to do anything with the form if you're going to be the only one adding into that form. Shareable link. By default, it's going to be anyone at your organization can view. And that's probably a good setting. You can copy that link, put that into your Google Classroom to share with students. But again, if you don't want students to be able to download these badges, what I can do is click at the top of my column, and I can right click, and I can choose to hide that column. So when I choose to hide it, what happens is anyone who's not an editor is not going to be able to open that column back up again. And thus, I suppose, they could always take a screenshot of this badge column. It might actually help if instead maybe we, do a background color, which will sort of be a deterrent for them. So some different things if you're concerned about that. But within the online course platform, in the module for this webinar, there are two other templates. Okay, so underneath the leaderboard and badge template that we looked at, you have the XP Award template and the badge email template. So these are the two that you would use with that program called Autocrat. Okay, and so the Autocrat add-on is right here. Okay, so I already have it installed, but you would see a button here that says install. And where that then would show up once you do that is if you go to your spreadsheet, there's a menu at the top that says add-ons. So you can see I already have Autocrat in here. If you didn't, another way that you can get Autocrat is from any spreadsheet, go to add-ons and then click get add-ons. Okay, and then you could search for Autocrat from here. And Autocrat is actually what I use to automatically generate those certificates that you receive for completing the webinars. See, I already have it, but if you don't already have Autocrat, you would see a button that said free, and you would click on that and then allow the permissions. Okay. So some things to keep in mind for Autocrat. And again, you can always go back to this particular presentation if you need some help. Let me just resize that a little bit here. So we talked about installing that. Here is just that same link to the XP award template. So again, any of these templates, what you want to do is go to File, and you would want to make a copy and add that into your Google Drive. So you can see in this template, there are some tags. So these tags would link right out to the Autocrat. So these are examples of tags that are used in an Autocrat template. Okay. And this is where now we're going to use that sheet 2. So far we've taken a look at your form responses, sheet 1. So with Autocrat, this is why I have the sheet 2. Again, if you don't want that step, you don't necessarily have to. This is just sort of something extra. So now in here, it's bringing in the data. If I need to, I can click enter for the rest of these. Okay. And these are all going to tie to some different areas of that automated email to students. Okay, and these are just my badge links here. Okay, so now from here, what we're going to do is walk through Autocrat quickly. So again, the other tags we'll use are in this badge email. So this XP award is actually the certificate that students would receive. They're also going to receive an email that would have their badge link. So for the email, what you'll want to do is open up this template, and then we'll copy and paste in any of the text that's in red. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is go to my add-ons menu. And since I've already installed Autocrat, scroll down here and click launch. And it might just take a second for that to launch. So it's working on that. Okay, so you can see that it's loading. And then I'm going to click on new job. Okay, so from here, I'm going to call this level and badge awarded. I'm going to call that level and badge awarded 1, and I'll explain why in a minute. I'm going to click next. And now I'm going to choose my template. So I'm going to choose the template from Drive. Or if there's one that I've recently used, I can use that as well. So I'm going to use that template. And what it's doing now is it's fetching those tags to bring in. Okay, so I'm going to click next. Now, again, I don't want it to merge from form responses 1. For the Autocrat, that's why I set up this separate sheet, which is sheet 2. Okay, but still, it's going to pull in those tags. So if you are using this option, Autocrat, where students are getting emailed their certificate and their badge, what you'd probably want to do is, instead of putting student names in the form, you would want it to be, instead of Mimi, Jimmy, whatever it is, you'd want it to be mimi@lancasterschools.org. So instead of their names, you would want it to be their email addresses. But then you want to make sure that all of these tags are linking to the correct thing. I'll click next. And the file name is the name of their certificate. So I can say level, and then again, I'm going to use this tag from this badge email. So when we're in the title of the certificate or in the email, we're going to use the $sign tag instead. So in this one now, we'll go to level and then just put the word level. So the student will see it as level, whatever it is, achieved. So it's going to fill in whatever that is. Okay. And now I'm going to click next. Choose a destination folder. So someplace in your Google Drive, click on my badges folder here and click select. And click next. This part I usually don't worry about, where it says dynamic folder reference. So I'm going to click next. And then the only condition you would want, if I click on add condition, is that the student name, the information in the student column not be null. Because otherwise then you're going to get certificates for all of these maybe non-existent students if you don't have 35 students in your class. So you can keep this as the condition of student equals not null. And then from here, click on Share Doc. And then you're just going to take all of the red tags that are in here. So again, the email address will be whatever the student name is. So you need $ and then the word student for the to line here. Because again, if we're using Autocrat, what this does is it is pulling this tag as the student email address, okay? So that's why if you're using this, instead of student names here, you would want that to be their email address. And then you would just fill out the rest of the information here that's in red. So you can see this is how the example would look. And then when students receive the email, instead of this $ something else, what it's going to actually do is just be their actual achievement because it's pulling it from the spreadsheet. Okay, and then you want to run it on a form trigger. So then you will say enable form triggers, yes. And then once that goes through, you will click save. Put a subject into the email. Here, I'll just put that one from here. Just copy that. This is just a test one that I'm doing. So in my subject field, paste that here. And I suppose I could also then paste in this red text here. Copy and paste that into the body of the email part here and click save. The only thing you would want to do is each time you wanted to fill out the form and give students more points, or every now and then you want to make it your own time trigger by clicking on edit and changing the title of your job. So you want to make sure then you change it to level and badge awarded 2. And then I also like to change the file name as well sometimes. So I could call that next level. Oops. Next level, and then it'll say the next level they've achieved. If you don't rename it, what's going to happen is it'll just assume that any student who's already received that certificate, that they don't get it again. But in this case, you want them to keep getting new certificates and new badges each time they reach that new level. So again, that is Google Leaderboards and Badges.